Some conditions look good on paper, but a frosted landscape in warm dawn lights is on another level entirely. In this video, I want to explore why this combination creates some of the most compelling landscape photographs you can take. The cold air, the frozen ground, and the first touch of warm lights working together to create a kind of tension in the frame that you just cannot fake in post-production. It's the kind of landscape photography that I often dream of photographing. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing okay and welcome to another YouTube video. You join me in my kitchen this evening, more on that in a second, but tomorrow morning I'm going to be getting back out into the Peak District and going to one of my favourite spots, a place called Lawrencefield, and that's because the forecast suggests that conditions are going to be absolutely perfect for producing the kinds of images that I've just been talking about. It's been super cold this week with polar air sweeping down the country from the Arctic, and at dawn tomorrow I should be getting out into a really hard frost. Now on the weather forecast, the horizon also looks pretty clear actually, so that means there'll be a good chance of that warm, gorgeous morning light sweeping across the moor as the sun rises. What am I going to be shooting? Well, actually, I'm going to be having another go at emulating this photo. As you can see, it takes pride of place in my kitchen, all framed. And yeah, fingers crossed, I'll be out in similar conditions and I'll be able to have another go at producing something like that. Then later on in the video, probably the second half, I'll be showing you how to preserve that warm-cold balance in post-production using the one tool in Photoshop that makes all of the difference. Well, morning everyone. Welcome to Lawrencefield, and this is exactly what you want on mornings like this. It's a thick frost on the heather and a clean line of sight to the horizon. The landscape is just, well, it's sitting in that gorgeous blue cyan cold, which is perfect because as the sun rises, the warm light is going to hit the hilltops, and then as it crests above, it should drop down and light up my foreground and produce the shot that I'm after here. And that lone tree should just sparkle if it's got a little bit of frost, and I think it has on the trunks. And yeah, that should be what creates that natural colour gradient that I guess almost feels unreal, because at the bottom of the frame it'll be all blue and cool and frosted, and then from the top of the image you just get this warm light dropping in and making, kind of creating that magical feeling. And that's the thing, without that colour contrast, you know, the shot just isn't the same. So that's what makes it special. If we just have a little look on the ground, and this is exactly what I was after, albeit in a slightly different position. I think you've just got these frosted bits of heather that are frozen. They're a bit kind of dull and subdued now, but when that light picks up and just kind of gets up and over the horizon for a short few minutes, it'll shine down on my foreground. And you know, I've only got a few minutes before that warmth just, you know, it's only 1 degree or 2 that it, you know, the temperature has to rise for that frost to melt, and then the moment is over and you really need to have taken your shot by then. So that's what I'm hoping for. and I think I should get it. So I'm going to set up and keep my fingers crossed that it happens.
I might be going crazy, I don't know what to do. My heart is screaming for you, babe. And what I'm trying to say is that you make the sky look blue, even when it is gray, babe. Every time I'm feeling down, you can make it go away. Your light is shining bright on me, got no reason to be
So
afraid.
while we're waiting for the sun to come up, let's just have a little talk about the foreground that I'm shooting here. And it is one of those classic kind of big booming foregrounds. They're really easy to miss actually when you're looking for them, because to the naked eye, they don't actually look that large until you get really, really close to them. And with a wide angle lens, you can, the closer you get, distort them even more and almost size them according to exactly how you want them in the image. So for this one, I do want to get kind of really up close and personal. If we just have a little look in camera, there's this lovely kind of heather plant that's fanning out the closer to you get to it. And I do want to get pretty close. I'm probably only about a foot and a half away. And if you have a little look, there are one or two just little residual bits of bell heather colour left. And they're a lovely kind of bright orange colour. So certainly when the light streams in through and from the top of the frame, that colour should catch. And then directly underneath it, you've got these kind of frosted branches or stalks or whatever you want to call them that they should go a kind of cool bluey colour, because they should still be in shadow, and I'll have the light picking up the lovely colour in these little bell heather buds. That is what's going to make it's going to create some real interest at the base of the image, which, and you know, especially when I'm shooting in portrait, these big foreground shots, when you've got a good foreground like that, they immediately draw the viewer's eye into the image. And then when you've got some colour contrast going on as well, it looks frozen and frosted, but there's warm light dropping in to the scene. That's what creates that interest in the shot past the initial wow factor, and allows the viewer to kind of keep looking at the shot. So yeah, we'll see, fingers crossed. I hope the light does get up above the horizon. There's one or two clouds just shifting about, but I think I'll be all right. They're not significant enough, I don't think, to block out the light. So yeah, let's see how this plays out. Well, here comes the sun, and it's lighting up this scene wonderfully. Notice how the frost is still holding in the shadows, in that deeper, cooler colour palette. And you know, that's why these scenes just feel so atmospheric, because those highlights warm up pretty fast, but those shadows, well, they stay icy cool, and that's what gives you that juxtaposition between the cool and the warm. And you know, that split in the colour temperature, that's what locks the eye in. And the key thing here is this is literally only going to last for a few minutes. We're probably 2 or 3 minutes into it here, because once that frost melts, then the whole effect is gone. So I'm going to keep shooting as the sun moves up. I think it's pretty optimal now. So let me just I'm having to focus bracket as well, or focus stack. So I'm going to shoot a shot at the base of my image just down there, and then I'm going to shoot another one probably about 1.5 foot into the scene, and then I'll shoot probably 2 more, one just third one on the tips of the frost, tips of the heather in the midground. And then I'm going to shoot one at the base of the tree, just to get that infinity shot, so everything in the distance is in focus. I'm shooting at 1/4 second f11, ISO 64, and I am at about 16 millimeters. So Yeah, definitely needs a focus stack, but that's fine because, you know, I've got the time to shoot the individual frames. And I've just got the bottom fifth of my shot in shadow now and frosted. The middle portion, if you just look, this middle portion is in light, but it's still frosted. So that frost hasn't melted yet, which is really, really nice. I might shoot one set of shots as well at f16 just so that I get a bit of a kind of nicer sun star if I want to produce that kind of shot. So let me just dial in those settings, f16. I'm also exposure bracketing here because there's a lot of dynamic range in this scene. So there we go, one shot focused at the bottom. Then I'll probably only need 3 at f16, another kind of in the middle of the scene, and then one more at the base of my base of the tree, and that should do it. We're nearly over because the sun is getting high enough now, high enough up that it's just covering the whole scene in light, which might be an image in its own right, but I think I prefer it when there's just a strip at the bottom that's still kind of cool and in shadow. So yeah, let's see how this turns out. So we're back home now, and what a morning that was. Honestly, without a shadow of a doubt, my favourite kind of setting to get out into. It's not easy, you know, you're getting up early in the morning and it is absolutely blooming cold out there. But when that sun gets above the horizon and bathes the whole scene in that warm light, you just kind of move from this frosted, Arctic, super cold, kind of tough, arduous kind of feel into well, everything just comes alive. And I think that's what makes those images so special. If you can capture that tension in between the two, that moment it goes from cool to warm, that's where the magic is. And some of the best kind of images of this nature do that really, really well. They've got the cool and the warm, and there's a perfect tension between the two. Right. I said when I got home I was going to have a little look into how you go about processing images like this. And I guess when you bring a scene like this into Lightroom, your first instinct probably is to adjust the temperature slider, right? Because, you know, Lightroom orders those sliders in the way it thinks you should address them first. So it's, you know, most people will just check that they've got the right white balance for the setting and then move progressively through the other adjustments. But the problem with this is that treats the image as if it had one temperature. And in those kind of moments when it's going from cold to warm, that's kind of the opposite of what makes mornings like that and images taken so special, because those shadows really, really should stay cold. They were cold. It was absolutely freezing. And the highlights should feel really, really warm. And when you've just got one slider trying to manage both of them, one or the other is kind of going to get a little bit messed up. So this is where the something called the color balance tool in Photoshop, I'm going to go in there and show you what I mean in a minute. Well, it becomes essential in helping you manage and maintain that tension. By splitting out the shadows, the midtones and the highlights, you can essentially guide the image back to what you experience. So cooler blues in the shadows, a nice clean neutral mid-tone, maybe you keep it slightly cool but not as cool as the shadows, and a warm nudge in those highlights, because that's kind of how it is out there. That's exactly what you're seeing. And that separation is what preserves the contrast between the frost and the dawn light. Without this, you end up with a kind of really washed out, blended look that just, you know, it loses all of that depth and tension that you worked for on location. But when you when you use this tool, you can manage those individual elements, and that's what will leave your shot being the compelling image that you want it to be. So let's jump into Lightroom in Photoshop, and I'll show you what I mean. So here we are in Photoshop. I've already stacked for focus and exposure the 4 frames that I shot into a single image here, a single file that we can work on. Right, let's get into this color balance adjustment layer thing that I was talking about. And I've already made my adjustments here just to kind of speed up this part of the video. Let's have a look at that first one. And let me talk to you about what the color balance layer is. Essentially, it lets you work on the 3 tonal scales. That's yellow and blue, magenta and green. That comes up as tint in Lightroom. And it also gives you the cyan and red channel, which is really, really useful because you don't have that in Lightroom. And then you can individually work on the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows across all 3 of those scales. So that's how you kind of start to separate out what you're working with. Now, this first adjustment that I've made is all about the shadows, really. And what I've done is I've moved the yellow and blue slider to +5, +1 or 2. You don't need a lot here. It does make quite a big difference, even just increments of 1. So I've pushed the shadows to +5 and I pushed the midtones to +3. I've also, if I just alt click that, put a gradient across the bottom so it's not impacting the top half. And that in its own, on its own, just makes a huge difference to some of the shadows. And whilst I was looking at it initially thinking, oh, this looks quite nice. Now, after I've made that adjustment, you know, you can kind of see without it, those shadows do look a bit sort of washed out and a bit, they don't really look warm, but they just look really, really flat. They don't have that coolness and those kind of deeper purples and blues that were in that frosted heather. But as soon as I turn it on, you can see the difference that makes. It's really quite dramatic. The next thing I've done is with a little kind of bonus tool here that I'm going to talk about. I've used a selective color adjustment layer, and I've gone into the blues, and I just wanted to kind of brighten up those bluer tones basically. So I've done that by kind of stripping out -50% of the black. That's how the selective color layer tool works. I also put a gradient on it, and then I used something called image apply image, which kind of it creates like a grayscale mask with, you know, 100% black and 100% white in your image, and it kind of helps you further refine things down to just the lighter tones in this case. So that's the impact of that has been to just at the bottom of my frame brighten up slightly some of those lighter blues, if you will. And then the last thing that I did was I got myself another color balance adjustments layer because I wanted to work on the top half of the image. And as you can imagine, I didn't do anything to the shadows, so everything's zeroed there. Same with the midtones. But I went to the highlights and I pulled the yellows back to -1, and I just injected a bit of red actually into the sky because I just wanted to shift it from being kind of too yellow to a slightly kind of oranger, warmer kind of feeling. And I put a gradient on that, so it's just impacting the top half of the image, and this is the impact it has. So that's with, that's with, and that's without. That's with, and that's without. It just makes the sun and the rays a little bit warmer. Now I've wrapped everything up into a group so you can see that's none of the adjustments on, and that's all of the adjustments on. So you know, I hope you'll agree, dramatic difference between the two, and with those adjustments I'm able to maintain that tension that I want in the image between the super cool tones in the shadows, the warm light coming through, and that transitional moment in the scene that I was trying to photograph is preserved perfectly. And yeah, it's a pretty impactful image. If I just look back at the version I shot before, yeah, it's a different take on it. So I had a bit of mist I can see in this, which was I guess flattening out the vibrance in the scene, and sort of it's got a slightly desaturated look. It's a little bit less contrasty, which is fine. It was a different morning, but you can certainly still see all of that coolness in the shadows and the warmth in the light coming through. So yeah, pretty pleased with that. And you know, what a morning to be out taking photographs. So there you have it. A frosted landscape really does just work because it naturally holds on to those beautiful, colder, cool tones for longer. And when the sun pops up, that's when it introduces those gorgeous warm tones. But all of that happens in a very, very narrow window of time. And that's the perfect recipe for something called color tension and atmospheric depth. And it's that moment that you want to capture in your photo when you're set in your composition. And that'll be what makes your image, or moves it from kind of being something that's good to one that's absolutely exceptional, and hopefully holds its place within your portfolio for a long time. And don't forget, when you control those tones separately in Photoshop using the tool that I showed you, that's how you keep all of that mood intact. I'm going to leave it there, I think, for this video. And thanks ever so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed what I had to show you. And as is always the way, please give it a little thumbs up, perhaps drop a comment to let me know you're there. And most importantly, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I am definitely going to keep going out there. I mean, winter's coming, so fingers crossed we get lots more of this stuff. It's just brilliant to photograph. I'm going to keep giving you a little bit of an analysis of what I see in the conditions and what I'm hoping to shoot. I'll always talk you through the decisions I take in terms of the compositions that I'm shooting, hopefully to create strong imagery, not just ones that are kind of a bit of an excuse for creating a video. And hopefully I kind of keep the standard that I've set going in these videos so far. So I'm going to leave you with the old image and the new image that I shot this morning to a bit of atmospheric music. But until the next time I do one of these, I'm going to say cheerio and see you on the next one soon. Ta-da!